Picture a morning, no alarm, no clock, no place you need to be. You open your eyes, stretch, and ask yourself one question: what should I do today? As strange as that sounds to us now, for 99% of human history, that was just an ordinary morning. For nearly 300,000 years, every single day began that way. And the answer to that question looked nothing like the life you're living now. Right now, the average person spends 90,000 hours of their life working. That's nearly a third of your waking existence handed over to a job. But for most of human history, the concept of a job simply didn't exist. No salary, no boss, no career ladder. So, how did people actually spend their days? In 1963, anthropologist Richard Lee studied the Juhwanzi people of Botswana, one of the closest living examples we have to pre-agricultural human life. What he found was surprising. Adults spent only about 2.5 days a week acquiring food. That's roughly 17 hours. The rest of their time belonged entirely to them. This wasn't a one-off. The Hadza of Tanzania, the Ashe of Paraguay, the Martu of Australia. Different continents, different climates, different cultures, yet the same result kept showing up. 15 to 20 hours a week of work needed to survive. You probably work more than double that. You might be asking, but those are modern communities. How do we know ancient humans lived the same way? The answer is written in their bones. When archaeologists compare hunter-gatherer skeletons to those of early farmers, the difference is stark. Farmers were shorter, their teeth were riddled with cavities, their spines showed the wear of repetitive labor, and they died younger. Hunter-gatherer skeletons tell a different story: taller, stronger, healthier teeth, far less joint damage. Contrary to what we assume, prehistoric humans spent less time in exhausting physical labor, not more. Perhaps the strongest evidence isn't in the bones at all, it's on the walls of caves. In 1994, explorers discovered Chauvet Cave in southern France. Inside were paintings nearly 30,000 years old: horses, lions, rhinoceroses, rendered with perspective, shading, and motion. Someone spent countless hours deep in that cave, working by firelight, creating something with no survival value whatsoever, not for food, not for defense, simply because beauty mattered. In Blombos Cave in South Africa, archaeologists found shell beads 100,000 years old, each one hand-drilled. The nearest coastline was 20 kilometers away. Someone walked nearly 40 kilometers round trip just to gather those shells, then spent hours shaping them into jewelry, not because they had to, because they wanted to. In 2008, researchers in Germany uncovered a 40,000-year-old flute, carved from the wing bone of a vulture. 5 finger holes, spaced with real precision. Whoever made it understood rhythm, understood pitch, and gave up a great deal of time to create something whose only real purpose was to bring people together. None of this is an isolated case. Across Europe, Africa, and Asia, archaeologists keep finding decorated objects, finely crafted tools, ornaments, and symbolic art going back tens of thousands of years. When our ancestors weren't out looking for food, they were creating, decorating, imagining, making the world a little more beautiful. So let's rebuild an ordinary day. You wake at dawn. Yesterday's fire is still glowing. Someone quietly feeds it another piece of wood. Breakfast is leftover meat or fish, maybe a handful of nuts gathered the day before. It isn't rushed. It's social. People talk, laugh, loosely figure out what the day might hold, not because they have to, because that's simply what humans do. Later in the morning, a small group might head out to hunt or gather, but here's the important part: they don't go every day. If yesterday's hunt was good, and there's still food stored away, there may be no reason to leave camp at all. Instead, people sharpen spears, weave baskets, work a hide until it's soft and usable. This isn't work in the modern sense. There's no manager, no clock. Skill itself earns respect. Making something well is simply part of being human. When hunting does happen, it rarely looks like the dramatic chase you see in movies. Humans are persistence hunters. Rather than sprinting, they track an animal at a steady jog for hours, letting their ability to sweat and regulate body temperature slowly wear the animal down until it collapses. The hunt, including the walk home, might take 3 to 6 hours. The meat is shared. Everyone eats. and by early afternoon, the essential work of the day is largely done. What happens next is the part modern people find hardest to picture. Nothing and everything all at once. People sit in the shade and talk. Children play. Friends groom each other, reinforcing the bonds between them. Someone strings shell beads into jewelry. Someone else carves a design into a bone. Some simply rest. Anthropologist James Sussman documented that Zhuangzi adults spend roughly 6 hours a day in what he called social time. Not working, not sleeping, just being with other people, talking, laughing, telling stories. Because in a world with no money, no police, no written contracts, your survival depends entirely on your relationships. If people don't like you, they don't have to share food with you when you're hungry. So you invest an enormous amount of time in those bonds, not because it's efficient, because it's how you stay human. Then the sun goes down and something remarkable happens. In 2014, anthropologist Polly Wiesner analyzed hundreds of hours of recorded Zhuangzi conversation. During the day, the talk was practical. Who saw tracks where, which plants were ready to harvest, complaints about someone not sharing fairly. But at night, around the fire, 81% of conversations turned into stories, myths about how the world began, tales of ancestors who did impossible things, jokes that made everyone laugh, adventures from far away. Wiesner argued that this is where human culture was actually born. God, spirits, the past, the future, things you can only think about once your stomach is full and you're safe. Even sleep looked different. Historical records from medieval Europe, along with sleep studies from the 1990s, confirm that before artificial light, humans slept in 2 phases. About 4 hours of sleep, then 1 to 2 hours of quiet wakefulness in the dark, then another 4 hours of sleep before dawn. So a full day looked something like this: 4 to 6 hours securing food or making tools, about 6 hours of social time, storytelling, bonding, play, roughly 8 hours of sleep, split into 2 phases, and the rest, simply resting, sitting, watching the clouds, existing without needing to justify that existence through productivity. Then, around 10,000 years ago, something changed. Humans in the Fertile Crescent began planting seeds and domesticating animals. Agriculture is a trap. Once you start farming, you can feed more people. More people means you need more food. More food means more farming. Within a few generations, populations exploded, and there was no going back. There were now too many mouths to feed by hunting and gathering alone. You were locked in. Farming demanded far more labor: plowing, planting, weeding, harvesting, storing, defending crops from animals and raiders. The skeletal evidence is unambiguous. Early farmers worked harder, ate worse, and died younger than the hunter-gatherers who came before them. But the population kept growing, and with it came specialists: toolmakers, potters, weavers, then soldiers, priests, administrators, and eventually jobs, employment. The idea that your time now belonged to someone else in exchange for the resources you needed to survive. By the time cities rose, the original human rhythm of life was already gone, replaced by schedules, obligations, and the need to spend most of your waking hours working just to get by. Today, you'll spend about 90,000 hours working. Your ancestors spent a fraction of that. You sleep in one long block and call waking up at 2 in the morning insomnia. They slept in 2 phases and used the hours in between for quiet reflection. You spend your life chasing an idea of success, wealth, and achievement that society invented. They woke up every morning already free, already enough, at peace, with nothing left to prove to anyone. They didn't need to become successful. In many ways, they were already living the life you're working your entire existence just to retire into. You make art if you can find the time after the job is done. They made art because they had the time, because that's simply what humans do. We're not a different species, but we live so differently from the way humans lived for 99% of our existence that we might as well be. We traded freedom for food security, leisure for population growth, time for productivity, and most of us have no idea what we gave up because we never got to know it was there.